Hi everyone. So today I'll be talking about how coronavirus affects lungs. So we all know that the coronavirus affects the respiratory system, but how does it cause so much respiratory difficulty? Like why does it cause breathlessness? So we don't know all that. I'll be talking about that. So first, you must know certain basics for that. You know that there are two lungs which are present in the chest of a human body. There are two lungs, and between there are two tubes called bronchi, one from each lung, which lead up to a larger tube called trachea, right? And the trachea is connected to the nose via the pharynx and the larynx, two passages which connect. The pharynx is common to the pharynx is connected to both the nose and the mouth, but finally it gives way to the larynx and the esophagus. So the air comes in through the larynx, right? So when a person breathes in, it will go into the larynx through the two bronchi and into the lungs. So this is and between the two lungs there is the heart which is present. Now it's very important to know what is the relation between the heart and the lung, which I'll tell you briefly about. Before that, this bronchi which enters the lung, this undergoes certain branching. It undergoes branching, then each undergoes further branching, right? This undergoes further branching and further branching, and finally this is what makes up the lung. This plus finally these passages, after multiple branching, it leads into a sac like structure called alveolus. Alveolus means sac, and the plural is alveoli. These basics you must know. So this sac, this is the end, and there are multiple. So each branch ends. There are multiple branches which end in multiple sacs like this. So like this, right? So these sacs and these tubes are what make up the lungs. So the oxygen, so you know that we breathe in the oxygen through the nose, which enters the trachea, and through the bronchi, it enters the lungs. Right now, what happens? The oxygen passes through all these airways, through all these branchings, and finally, it reaches the. This is the chemical formula for oxygen. So it reaches the alveolus or sac. Right here is where the oxygen enters the blood. Now blood is what carries the oxygen from the lungs to the whole body. Now how does that happen? That is where the heart comes in. So before that, this alveolus has yeah, the alveolus is lined by a set number of cells, multiple cells. This is what you know. So a cell is what makes up all the organs, and that is the smallest functional unit of any organ. So a cell, the all number of multiple cells come together and function as a certain tissue or a certain organ, right? So each alveolus is lined by these cells. There are certain details which I'll not go into, but in general, the function of these cells is not just oxygen passing from the sac into the blood. That's not how exactly it works. Basically, some of these cells produce a substance called surfactant, which is a lipid, a kind of fat, uh, which keeps these sacs open, and so that the oxygen from the atmosphere can enter these sacs. So if the surfactant is not produced, then these sacs will collapse. These will collapse, right? So if this collapses, the oxygen from outside cannot enter, and hence the oxygen is less, and it cannot, and the blood is not oxygenated enough. So these cells are very important in that aspect. That is what you must know. Now I'll talk about how the heart is. heart, how the heart comes into the picture. Yeah, so considering that this is the heart and these are the lungs, I have just separated them for the purpose of understanding. In the heart, suppose these two are the right chambers and these are the left chambers. This is the upper chamber is called the atria and the lower is called the ventricle. So there are two atria and two ventricle. The right atria. So what happens is, first, as you know, blood vessels carry blood, and blood is what carries oxygen from the lungs to the entire body, and oxygen is a very important component which is needed by all the cells for producing energy, along with glucose is what we get from our food, like rice or rotis or something, so which is broken down in our digestive system and absorbed as glucose, which along with oxygen is required by all the cells to produce energy for every cell to function properly. So this how is this oxygen, how does the blood transport the oxygen to the rest of the body? So what happens, first, the right atrium of the heart receives impure blood or deoxygenated blood, that blood in which the oxygen content is very less, from two blood vessels. One is the inferior vena cava, this which is comes from below, and a superior vena cava which comes from above. These two blood vessels carry the impure blood from the rest of the body. Above, in the sense, this is from the head, this is from below from the all the other organs situated below the heart, level of the heart. Okay, so these two blood vessels carry the impure or blood containing less oxygen, because the oxygen has been taken up by all the cells present above and below for the respective functioning. So this has less oxygen, it enters the right atrium, from where the right atrium pumps the blood into the right ventricle. From the right ventricle, this blood is pumped into a vessel called pulmonary artery. Okay, this pulmonary artery carries this impure blood towards the lungs. Now it doesn't directly go to the alveoli. What happens, this pulmonary artery divides, like how I told you about the bronchi which divides into many branches and then ends in the alveolus. Like similarly, this vessel divides and divides and finally becomes the tiniest blood vessel called the capillary, which is very thin walled. So what happens, now each capillary, I told you there's an alveolus which is lined by cells and which into which oxygen comes in. Now this capillary enters and goes along the wall of the alveolus, all right, and exits. Now, why did I change the color? What happens is, this oxygen here, which is entered, it passes through the wall of the alveoli, and it enters and also passes through the wall of the capillary and enters the blood and makes the blood pure, that is oxygenated. So the oxygen content of the blood leaving in the same capillary is very high. Now, this happens in every alveolus. There are multiple alveoli, like I told you, in each lung. So from each alveolus, the oxygenated blood exits like this, and all these capillaries join together form bigger vessels. These join together form bigger vessels, and these finally come to form four vessels. All right, which four vessels, right? Four vessels which enter from the lung to the left atrium, right? These are called pulmonary veins which enter the left atrium, which now the left atrium pumps this oxygenated blood into the left ventricle. Left ventricle is very, very thick. It has a very muscular wall, which, why is that needed? Because this is going to pump through a blood vessel called aorta. It is going to pump all the oxygenated blood to the rest of the body, everything. It has to, and this blood from here has to reach all parts of the body. For that, the wall has to be very muscular. So it pumps the oxygenated blood into the aorta, and from the aorta the oxygenated blood goes to both above, like there are some blood vessels which go above and below, right? up to the brain and other structures which are present in the head, and below, like, to the kidney, to the liver, to any other organ like stomach, even the legs. So all these organs, here to the brain, all the glands, like salivary glands and everything, eye, nose, everything. So 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 basically this oxygen is transported via this, and then again from here, once these vessels transport oxygen to these organs, from there then that used blood or the impure blood will exit via these vessels and enter the right atrium, right? This is the cycle. Now, what happens in case of a coronaviruses? What happens? You know that they affect lungs. They enter through, like I told you, they enter through either the nose, the mouth, or even the eyes. So eyes are, as you know, the uh, lacrimal duct. That is the, okay, you might not know this, but the tear duct is connected. It exits in the nose. It enters, it connects the eyes to the nose, right? So again, any, if you touch your eyes or your nose or your mouth after touching a contaminated surface, or if you breathe in any respiratory droplets through the mouth or through the nose, you know that you can get infected with coronavirus, right? uh, so what happens is, if these coronaviruses enter, they will go through all these branchings and they will enter the alveolus. All right, so here they will enter and they will enter these cells. If I zoom in on one cell, a cell has a nucleus. Nucleus is kind of like the brain of the cell. That is what gives commands to the cell, and this is where this is how the cell, from this nucleus is how the cell functions, right? And there are other components as well, but this is the main component. So when a virus infects all these cells, like virus infects a cell, the main objective of the virus, see, a virus cannot survive by itself. It needs a host cell, like it needs some cell to survive, because it can't multiply by itself. It doesn't have the machinery, so it enters these cells, utilizes this machinery, and it multiplies. It will multiply into, and this will exit the cell and will infect further more cells. So this is how it multiplies. Now when it's infecting a cell and utilizing its machinery, it is causing other changes in the cell, and also it is not letting the cell function efficiently because the machinery is being used up by the virus to multiply itself. So these cells are not functioning properly, then surfactant is not getting produced very well, and then oxygen cannot enter into the alveolus, and hence the oxygen entering the blood is less, and thus the blood which is going and supplying oxygen to the organs is deficient. So the oxygen getting delivered to all these organs is also deficient, right? Now what happens, uh, there are three organs which, when there is such a problem, when oxygen is somehow deficient, three organs are very vital organs. Three organs which are liver, no, sorry, kidney, heart, and brain, right? So these three organs have a very high blood supply because these three are very vital organs. So when there is a deficiency in oxygen, it's not very much manifested in these organs, of course. So it's kind of like it's like kind of like a defense mechanism. These vital organs should not be affected by any changes in oxygen levels in the blood. So if they are having high flow of blood, so it's a good thing, they need more oxygen. So initially these organs aren't affected, it's the other organs with less blood supply which are affected, right? And also, when oxygen levels in the blood reduce, there are certain compensatory mechanisms, like the heart is made, there is a command from the brain for the heart to pump faster. So because if the oxygen in the blood is reduced, then if the heart pumps faster, than in 1 minute the oxygen which was reaching in a normal body, because the oxygen content is less in the blood, if the heart pumps faster in 1 minute, then the same oxygen requirement can be fulfilled. So initially some compensatory mechanisms work in that way. This, and also one more important one is the lungs. Now you know that there's a diaphragm, there's a muscle, thick pad of muscle below the lungs called the diaphragm. Now when the diaphragm contracts, that is when it becomes smaller in size and it comes down, the lungs can expand, and when it relaxes, it come up like this, and the lungs can reduce in size, and this is how air exits. And when the lungs expand, that's how air enters, right? It creates a pressure difference. So when the command from the brain comes to the diaphragm and from the respiratory center in the brain to the diaphragm to contract faster, and hence this person breathes in faster so that more oxygen enters through the so that the oxygen per minute which is entering the lung is more. But the problem is these alveoli are not still not functional very well. So the person, despite taking such fast breaths or deep breaths, is not able to satisfy the oxygen requirement to that extent. So this person has this, and also because the oxygen requirement to all these organs and throughout the body is not being met, this person is feeling breathless again. The blood from the aorta, oxygenated blood, even the heart is made up of cells, it needs energy, it needs oxygen. So this blood from the aorta goes to the heart and also to the lungs separately, so both of them are also supplied by blood and from the, like, by oxygen and glucose. So if they don't also receive oxygen, their functioning will also reduce, right? So this deficiency of oxygen is manifested as along with the compensatory mechanism as this difficulty in breathing, like I said, because this faster breathing, but despite that oxygen is not entering, so this person is having a type of breathlessness. And also you have cough because if any foreign organism enters your lungs, there is generally a reflex coughing mechanism in order to throw it out. Of course, for a virus that's not possible, it's a very microscopic organism, so it's not a very effective defense mechanism. That is why cough happens. And why a person has fever is because, of course, like any other foreign organism enters the body, fever is kind of like an indicator that there's some inflammation in the body. So it is just an indicator, it's not a disease by itself, it's an indicator of a virus or some other organism having entered. So this is what happens. Now when a patient comes to the hospital, the person's lungs are affected, and because of the lungs being affected, the oxygen being delivered to the rest of the body is also affected. Now there are two sets of things which the doctor has to look into. One, the oxygen requirement to the all the other organs has to be met. Number two, the infection and the damage in the lung also has to be healed, and the infection has to be eliminated, right? These are the two things which has to be looked into. Now if in order, first what they do is, so that the rest of the body doesn't suffer from the lack of oxygenation, the lungs, since the lungs are not functional, the lungs are replaced by a ventilator. So the function of the ventilator is only that it just takes over the function of the lung till the lung recovers. That is the only function of the. Just because a person is put on a ventilator doesn't mean they will magically recover. This is not what is curing coronavirus. It's just a support. It just replaces the lung and gives the oxygenation to the rest of the human body, and also to the lungs, of course. So because lungs is also receiving blood supply, and so ventilator provides oxygen at very controlled conditions to the body. In that meanwhile, along with that, I told you there's another set of things that the person has to look into, the doctor has to look into. So for the infection in the lung and the inflammation and also the fever and all, so the doctor gives a set of drugs. For now it's not very, everything is undergoing clinical trials. Some are there in the phase 3, some are in phase 2, but hydroxychloroquine, which people had thought was good, is proving to be not that effective. So that anyway, we the haste to implement or to um, use the drug was only because there is no time right now and the pandemic is going on. So, and that too, it was very it's a very restricted use, only on doctor's prescription and only for people like doctors, nurses, healthcare workers, or people who are in close contact with the coronavirus patients, who are given the hydroxychloroquine tablets. And that too, looking into the fact that if they have any cardiac disease or any other disease, and the dosage is adjusted accordingly, because so as to prevent any coronavirus in such cases. But again, it's not very effective right now. What they are focusing on is remdesivir, which seems promising. So, what I told you, the other aspect, the infection aspect, is being tackled with uh, drugs which control fever, like paracetamol, or I don't know, any other anti-inflammatory drug, and also such antivirals which help in eliminating the infection. And so the ventilator is used only till the time when the lungs cannot breathe, like the person cannot breathe using his own lungs. Once the patient starts showing recovery, once the patient's lungs are healed enough that he can breathe on his or her own, the person is taken off the ventilator. I think the drugs are continued for a bit longer, but the person is taken off the ventilator and then he recovers. So what the person recovers because of these supposed drugs. Right now the drugs are not very, they are all going with what they usually prescribe, like drugs for fever or in general any respiratory infection. There's nothing specific for coronavirus except for this right now. So along with the immune system of the person is what determines how fast this lung heals, right? Now what has been noticed is that in people with comorbidities, or in people with who are above 60 years of age, who are dying because of this, the reason they are dying is, number one, because their compensatory mechanisms, which I told you, for maintaining oxygen, that is not very effective in these people, in people who have a disease like diabetes, hypertension. Their blood vessels and the heart are somewhat compromised already. And also in these people with comorbidities, and also the older people, the immune system is not very strong, it's a bit weak. So that's why the healing of the lung is not very efficient, healing and the fighting of the infection is not very efficient. So this might be one of the reasons why there is mortality. So, but younger people, with the help of the immunity and the drugs and the compensatory mechanisms, they heal and they might not have that severe of an infection. So this is the use of ventilator. This is how coronavirus affects lungs basically.